Here again in Loreto Street, this massive temple here.
A good example of that, but you have to start right here.
Yeah, but this is from the time period before the Inca, and you can look and you see the style of construction, you see the perfection. On the opposite wall, this is Inca. You can tell that because the stones are a little bit irregular in shape and they have obvious tool marks in them. You can see the points, the little white points here. You can tell that these are tool marks from obsidian or some other stone tool. But when we cross over to this side, you see marks, but these are not tool marks. You can't see where the stone has been punctured or bruised. And that's one of the indicators. The other one is the fact that you see this very smooth surface and very shiny, as though some incredible heat source was used to harden what was a softer stone previously. So this is in Loreto Street still. And in terms of building, as someone who's worked in stone a little bit, you look at this joinery, and this is explained to me as being of the Inca period. And you look at that and you go, wow, that's really well done. You know, I can see the tool marks, and I can see where, you know, the joins were made, and that's, you know, that's very well done. It's very fine craftsmanship. But right across the way, this is thought to be from an earlier period, pre-Inca. And this is where the technical accuracy is just, like, you know, beyond belief. I mean, this is basically perfect joinery. And not just that, but when you move along, where the stones intersect, like here, this tiny little difference between the height of these two and how it shows up there. And this perfectly straight line. So on this wall near the Coricancha, we have, this is classic Inca construction. But right next to it, we have the Urunpacha, the pre-Inca construction. Larger blocks, green andesite, very hard stone. And again, the way that they love to shape the corners like this, aesthetic, but also in terms of for strength. And then as we come down, then this is the later Inca way of building. So you have three kinds in one corner.
Early Pacha.
Early Inca Pacha. So Jesus Camara calls this the most perfectly built wall in the world. This is one of the walls of the Coricancha, and it may be from the Hanan Pacha period, which is the eldest period. Then came the Urun Pacha, and after that the Ukun Pacha, of which the Inca were part of. But this is technically as close to being perfect human or whatever building. I mean, this, you can't even see. You can see where the joint is, but it's way beyond any concept of putting a piece of paper in or whatever. Like, this is perfect joinery. Absolutely impossible with the use of stone tools or obsidian tools or maybe even tungsten carbide tools. This is incredibly ancient and has withstood earthquake after earthquake. You see where the joins have an actual glow to them. They shine. And again, this wall, according to Jesus Camara, is the most perfectly built wall in the world. And the shiny area is what is intriguing. Why is it shiny where the joins are? Was it because they were polished, or because there was some kind of heat treatment involved in the construction? And they talk about if the Inca existed for 300 years, from 1200 to 500, why would their building style change from being this to that? Or vice versa, how could they have changed their style of building if it went the other way, from this to that? This is what is called a chulpa tower at Silustani near Lake Titicaca. It was built by the Wari culture prior to the arrival of the Inca, and this is where someone or several people were buried because we found bones inside. However, this above is another chulpa tower. Conventional archaeology says that this was built after by the Inca culture. However, we have evidence that this is actually much older than this one, and that this is an attempt to replicate the look of that. So what we're going to see is this is one of many places where conventional archaeology has got the entire story backwards and round, or wrong. Because what we are witnessing is the finest construction is the oldest, the more recent is the more primitive. Whereas conventional archaeology teaches us, in history, that we are a evolving being going solely from the primitive to the advanced. But the true fact is that societies rise, societies fall. Rise again and fall. Technology is learned, it is enhanced, then it collapses. As the society collapses, the knowledge disappears and is sometimes So Peter's going to show us what happens when you move a compass away from the building. You can see that it's twitching. And then back in again, please. So there definitely seems to be a magnetic anomaly of some kind going on here, suggesting that these towers were not funeral towers, but they had an energetic function. So what you're looking at is a chulpa tower where half of it has been removed. Now most people are going to say that it was the the Spanish who did that they were tearing it apart for construction, but it's more likely, having been here many times, that actually this is a sign of an ancient explosion, that these were sonic resonating towers, and that there was an action that happened thousands of years ago that caused it, at least the outer part, to explode and to throw the exterior off in this direction. Now the explosion seems to have happened from east or east-northeast out this way, but we're going to test with other ones and see if that's the case. The outer area is made out of basalt, but the inner core is made out of a diorite or andesite material. The andesite is much denser than the exterior, and this clay possibly was some kind of insulating material. So rather than this being a funeral tower, this could have in fact been an ancient energy generator or storage devices. So you see this one, it's been recreated. Maybe half of it was intact. And so foolishly they've added this clay to fill in. This was done 2 years ago. But the cracks are evidence of something more than simply weight on top of weight. This one seems to resonate again to A sharp, and it causes actually the interior to really vibrate. Your body vibrates as well when you're inside. Another curious thing about these towers is that they taper upwards. They get wider as you go up, which is not a smart building practice in the modern day, the way we build buildings. Also the band that's around it, and you can see at the very top the way that it curves in. Oops, like that. So Christopher Dunn, the engineer, has a theory that these possibly were like pipes, or that the energy or sound was coming upwards. And his idea, I believe, is that these were actual earthquake or energy relieving chambers to reduce the chance of earthquake. So Charles, you were inside one of these, actually this one on the right. And could you tell me what was happening with the dowsing rods that were in there with you?
Maxine was using the dowsing rods, and it was spinning in a clockwise direction, not too fast and not too slow. There was three of us trying different tones while we were in there. Inside, there's almost like a spiral rock protrusion of stairway leading to the top, or almost to the top, and it looks like there's a square hatch right in the middle at the top. And so that much of it must be hollow, or there must be something in there, because I mean it looks like a stone door. It's a door, square door.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. So what you're looking at now is the debris field from a massive square one, which is here. So again, it's unlikely that this was manually taken apart, but could have been the result of a massive explosion in the distant past. If these were energy structures, capacitors, or generators, the system could have overloaded at some point, and then the whole thing, or the whole series, exploded to different degrees. Okay, this is a photo taken from an ancient site in Felsberg, Germany. And we are in Sacsayhuaman, and what we see is not simply something similar, but exactly the same thing.
Con las mismas herramientas.
With the same tools.
Exact same tools, exact same cutting pattern, but this is in Peru, and the photograph is from Felsberg, Germany, and it's the Temple of Thor? Templo de Thor in... Yeah, the Temple of Thor, with the ancient god of thunder and lightning in Germany. This, on the other hand, is of course magnificent. Sacsayhuaman. So again, the three time periods are Hananpacha, Uranpacha, and Ukunpacha, and this is the eldest. This is of the Hananpacha period. The huge stones that are carved out, they seem like cement that have been shaped out of soft stone and then hardened. At least that's the theory of Jesus Gamara and his father. But this is a splendid example of the Hananpacha ancient, very ancient culture here at Sacsayhuaman. This is Ukunpacha. This is of the period of the Inca. Very well built terraces, the andenes. But then right next to it, we have this. And this is from the Hananpacha. This is from the ancient, the first world. Ukunpacha, the third world, including present day, but this is Hananpacha. This is much more than 10,000 years old. We have the seat, the three thrones that were adopted. The center one was the seating place of the Inca. The one on the left, the Koya, and the one on the right was of the premier Virgin of the Sun, the Nustra. In all examples of the Haranpacha culture, beautiful straight cut lines into what I have probably overly said is the living rock. But where the planes meet, it's never sharp 90 degree or even any other degree angle. The joins are always curved. And you find that not only here, but also in other examples around the world, including in Egypt, and also, very controversial, but I don't care, also the Temple of the Rock in Jerusalem, which is the holiest of holies of both the Jewish people and of course the Muslims. You see a very fine example of the Hanan-Pacha culture. And this is one of the great mysteries, this massive stone, including a stairway, which is broken away from this beautifully smooth surface here. And I'm hoping that Jesus can explain what has happened. This part of the stairway here, which you can't see from this perspective, but it was originally attached right there. And this one obviously was connected there. But when did this big stone break away from the wall?
No lo sabemos, pero los incas ya lo encontraron así.
The Incas, they found already like this.
Oh, it was like this when the Incas
Yes.
came. So it was at the time before the Incas, probably during a great cataclysm,
Just like
that this happened.
It comes like that. Yeah.
So you see where the attachment was here to there, and we also see where the attachment was here to there. So this is like a very narrow stairway enclosed that went up to there. And this is actually where the tunnel was. This stone fell down before the Incas arrived, but they knew of somehow that there was a tunnel here. It begins here, and there are flights of stone staircases that go down, and then the tunnel leads to the Coricancha, which is more than 2 miles away from here. Okay, the famous slide, which is a solid piece of stone, is way off in the distance here that you can see. And the famous zigzag line, or wall, is way, way off in the distance, way over here. But we are on top of, this is the Great Chincana. And everywhere you look, there is an area that has been carved out. Not just one area, but it's the whole thing. That's what the whole thing is. And of course, many people will say that it's all a case of natural erosion, but then how do you explain this and that? And over, it's the beautifully smooth plain surfaces are just all over the place here. And I'm not an archaeologist, but or a geologist, but just by looking at the weathering patterns here, there's no way that this could be 500 years old. It's just and no one can explain the technology involved, that how the Incas could have done this with the so-called technology that they had at the time. This is not the work of Bronze Age man, or even Iron Age man. So you see these beautifully cut out and polished areas here.
Tenemos que bajar.
We have to go down.
Okay.
They don't allow it.
We're not allowed to be out there, but I'll keep the camera rolling because we did want to see what were clearly the cutting marks of some kind of human, or let's just stick to human technology. Whether it was another alien or what, who knows, I don't know. But just astonishing, again, the curves at the corners, they're not sharp angles, they're always a gentle curve. And we see this also at Ollantaytambo at the Temple of the Condor.
One more. Any one more? I think one here. I think I'll do one more in the middle.
Could very well be water channels.
Yeah, that's right.
So I'm going from the very top, maneuvering down, emptying, and pouring out at the lowest point. Okay.
Okay. My poor hand. These right here represent a system I think called fingers, calanoles, or something like that, on the other side of the mountain on the Altiplano, near the sea. They were used by the ancients for agricultural irrigation, but it turns out that it was only discovered in the 1970s how they were used. They're only 8 to 10 inches, 12 inches deep. When you put water in there, it creates a microclimate of about 18 inches high, and you can grow tubers and other things in that. They started using it again in the 1980s. It was an ancient thing. It produced enough food to support the large population that used to live out there. And that's what these represent. The rest of what everything else represents, we'll have to find out.
Yeah.
Oh God, here comes a whole crew. Shit. Whole crew of what? People. Turistas. Oh. Actually altered this stone when it was being used. You can tell here they've laid another layer of a different material here to alter the characteristics of this channel. So, in my estimation, they were at least tweaking and maybe doing actual experimentation. And I think the whole thing is to experiment with water flow and demonstrate water flow and design water flow. So occasionally it wouldn't be unusual to find a place that they say, oops, we need to go back and tweak that, just like engineers do today, back to the drawing board, except here it's a large stone. They didn't have three-dimensional CAD systems back in the old days that we know of, at least. But they did have this three-dimensional CAD model here. It's like a computer-aided design. And that's why I maintain that I highly suspect that they used liquid mercury that would scale down and act as water does on the scale that you're using here.
Right.
But unfortunately, so many places have been broken apart. So it's been chipped off. I doubt that the original people did that because it looks ugly.
Yeah.
And a lot of the zoomorphs, the animal shapes, have been broken.
Yeah, especially the heads of the pumas knocked off.
Yeah, you see over there, we see lobsters, we see pumas. What I was looking for today, particularly, was perhaps something like this that would have been a dome. And they carved it out and ran water through it to do some things like siphoning. I wouldn't be surprised to find, if we had enough time to look at this, or look at our drawings or our pictures later, that they do the concept of a siphon.
And so what you're saying for those who are non-scientific is that mercury was used because this is a scale model.
Yes, mercury will replicate the properties of water on a scale model, whereas water won't. Water has surface tension. If you've ever filled up a glass with water totally to the top, you get a little meniscus on the top. The glass is actually higher than the water. The water is actually higher than the glass because of surface tension. And water molecules hold it that way. So if you try to take a river that's a mile wide and scale it down to this, and you try to pour water through it to replicate what the water will do, it's not going to work. You'd have to have, the best shot you could do would be to use liquid mercury.
Okay, go for it.
Okay, I'm going to pour water. There is a bowl in the top, the size of a soup bowl, or a little bigger. Pour the water in and see where it moves.
Here it comes.
Okay, I'm not seeing any from over here.
It's just, just puddling here. You have to have a lot more water than that.
Like some more?
Yeah, pour some more. Just pour it all. Let's just see. Okay, I'll tell you, stop there and let's pour some. Here it comes. Just let this one go for a minute. Let's pour it in the other bowl to your left. Is there another bowl over there to your left?
There's a channel right here.
Okay, let's try that one. It's coming down in two different directions.
Yeah, it's a channel. It's not a bowl.
Oh, here it comes. Collects here.
The other one's still flowing.
We discovered that water flows downhill.
Wow, it's just amazing.
So it puddles there for some reason. But
All right.
here it comes. Down into two places it splits.
Yeah.
We're going to try it on the flat place there.
Okay, we'll do this one.
Yeah, let's try that. Oh, it's just, that's not doing, that's fine. It does flow, but